Three, two, one, here we go, boys and girls. All right, so during the month of March, I have spent the entirety of the month telling my life story. So if you followed along at the beginning of the month, I started at birth, and the last podcast released on Friday, I ended up and through today. This year I will turn 58 years old. It's crazy, crazy. Time flies. So what am I going to do on the last day of the month? Is that what? Yes, tomorrow when this gets released, it will be March 31st. I'm going to just kind of ramble a bit. I'm going to talk about hope, and I'm going to talk about my views on living a life in recovery. So I say in 2007, after having returned to use for about a 6-month period, I had been completely abstinent from everything for 10 and a half years. And in the fall of 2006, I returned to use. And you hear these stories. I returned to use drinking, and then I was looking for pot, and then I was looking for cocaine. And then at the end of and I was talking with my good friend Sarah, my best friend Sarah, about this. It wasn't too long. It was actually in December-ish, November, December-ish of 2006 when we were just in that cycle, those who have been in active addiction, in that cycle of just using, crashing a bit and then using, right? And you go through a lot of money and you go through a lot of chaos. We had recognized pretty quickly. I know myself internally, I was like, this isn't going to go well, right? Because I had been sober. I'd been in recovery for 10 and a half years and returned to use. And boy, it was game on. And so when I returned to recovery, March 25th of '07, this month I celebrated 18 years. But 18 years ago, I returned to a life in recovery because I knew that for me, that I needed to be in recovery. And for me, that meant no use. And I'm fortunate that I was able to get back. And what I said is, I need to really take a look at some things. I had enjoyed great success in those 10 and a half years that I had previously. Like, I had gotten back into a career I never thought I would have. I had made great progress as an individual. I had started peeling the onion of my childhood trauma. I had started learning good skills and how to be in a relationship. I had made progress in a lot of areas, but there was still work to be done. And so what I decided was I was just going to kind of, reinvigorate my life in recovery. And really it started then, but I remember this will help you to understand why I changed how I live my life as a person in recovery to this day. It started when I ended up in a master's program. I went back to school in 2009 to get a bachelor's degree. That was my only plan. It was never my plan to go into a graduate program, but I did. And in a graduate program, you have to do some research, and I had never really done that before. And I decided I wanted to do it in the field of substance use disorders and recovery. And because I wanted to create a program for a college campus to help support people who were in recovery. And it was during that period, this was 2010, that I changed my entire view on the recovery world. And a few things happened. One, I started following an organization that's still in place today called Faces and Voices of Recovery. They were starting to do advocacy in the field of recovery, helping people to find their path and to support them. And around this time, there was a film that was released. It was a documentary on people in recovery, and it's called, you can go watch it, The Anonymous People. And wow. So the research opened my eyes in ways that they had not been opened before. I learned that you hear me say this. You'll hear me, if you follow me at all, you'll hear me say this. I learned, and for me it was the first time, that there are multiple ways to get to and stay in recovery. I was like, oh my gosh. For me, previous to this period of time, I had only known the 12-step way, right? And that's the only way I knew. And it's what I was taught in treatment. I was a counselor at this time. It was what I was teaching others. It's predominantly what's still to this day. It's changed some. What is taught in the treatment arena is 12 steps. Well, I learned that there are people, and it's funny because my eyes were really open wide. It also caused me to go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. There are people who could easily have been diagnosed with significant issues with addiction, right? And needed treatment, long-term treatment. There are people who just quit. Who, and I say this, there might have been some crisis. I always say there's usually some crisis that causes a person to want to change their relationship with drugs and alcohol. So maybe their significant other had been telling them, hey, you need to quit, or else maybe their employer, but they just quit. They're like, okay, you know what? I get it. They don't ever go to treatment. They don't ever go into a counselor's office, and they just start living a healthy life without drugs and alcohol. That happens. I was like, oh my gosh, and I started recognizing that there were people in my world who had done that. My biological father, who I found when I was 29 years old, that's what he had done. I knew other people, and I was like, oh yeah. Now, in the recovery arena, that can be looked at in negative ways. And I started learning about this too. I had to recognize that I was viewing people in negative. Well, they're a dry drunk. Well, they need to go to a meeting, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, shut up. That's dumb. It's not dumb. It's just like, that's closed-minded thinking. So I also learned that there are people who, they may never go to treatment, right? Inpatient or outpatient treatment for drugs and alcohol. They solicit the help of a mental health professional, and through that help, they change their relationship with drugs and alcohol, whether it's complete abstinence, because this will rub some people the wrong way and they don't view it as recovery, but it is for that person. But some people may engage with a mental health professional and change their relationship with drugs and alcohol. It could be complete abstinence, or this happens, friends, and it's a beautiful thing. I have a friend who moved. He lives in Idaho now, but he was on the streets. Like, he was one of them. I was one of them. Couch surfing on the streets, in and out. Like, we point at those people like they're some other type of human. They're us. But anyway, he had been heavily engaged with methamphetamines, has a crazy story, right? He found his path to change in his relationship with that drug. He stopped using it altogether through religion. His faith, his Christian faith, and he's now a preacher man. You would never know it by talking to him, but that's what he does. And he drinks wine once in a while. I see that as recovery, right? It's a beautiful thing. There are people who, on the other spectrum, here's my story. I've been to treatment. I've been to inpatient treatment twice. I've been criminal justice system involved. I have had a lot of mental health counseling. And my path is complete abstinence. There's that path, right? There are people who use what's called medication-assisted treatment. And I want to say that this is medication assisted treatment. You may have heard of it, and Google all this stuff. Look it up, check it out, educate yourself. Medication assisted treatment has actually been around for a long time. It's gotten a lot more traction in the last decade plus with the opioid epidemic, right? Because people take medication that takes away the euphoria, the high of opioids, and it helps them stop using heroin or opioids, which most people who start with pills end up on heroin because heroin's a lot cheaper. But it can help them to stop that drug use. They take a pill, a medication, and their life improves. That's recovery. That's a beautiful thing. And I said that's actually been around a long time. There's actually a pill, and that name's eluding me. I was in the counseling arena, and I remember individuals with strictly alcohol use. They would go to their doctor. Their doctor would prescribe them a pill. Ooh, it's right there, and I can't think of the name. But they describe them a pill, and you take this pill, and you're told, if you drink while on this pill, it's kind of an aversive method, you will get violently sick. There's actually treatments that use this method aversive. They force you to drink, and then you get so violently ill, it's called aversion therapy. Anyway, this pill, you take a pill, and you know if I drink while I'm on this pill, I'm going to get violently sick. You won't die. But man, it will. And then after a while of no use, you change your life, right? That's recovery. Here's my catch-all and I want you to wrap your brain around this. And I want you to look at people differently when you're talking about helping them navigate a path to recovery. Has their life improved? Right? Has their life improved? Are they no longer going to jail? Are they no longer staying out all night? Are they able to keep a job? Is their family situation improving? See, these are markers I think we should look at to determine if someone's in recovery or not. But what happens still to this day with all the knowledge we have and knowing that there are multiple paths to get to and stay in recovery, we still use abstinence as the primary marker to determine if someone's in recovery or not. And I argue we have to stop. Now, the good news is that many treatment centers, I shouldn't say many, some treatment centers, behavioral health courts or drug courts are adapting and are becoming less punitive when someone does return to use. And they're not just cutting them off. We've had a system for a while that has been punitive based at its core when treating people for substance use disorders. And what am I talking about? Well, if people aren't remaining 100% abstinence, we cut them off from services. If they have returns to use, we cut them off from services. We have to change that mindset. We have to have boundaries and accountability. But when we have the mindset that abstinence is the only way, oh boy, that can make it really difficult, right? So going back to when I was talking about, I was doing this research and it really just opened my eyes. Changed my views on how I live my own life in recovery, and how I think when I'm asked about how to help someone find their own path to recovery. I talk to family members or individuals themselves. I no longer look through this very linear, siloed way of getting to and staying in recovery. It's not one way or the highway, right? So I'm very, if I'm a staunch, hardcore advocate of something, that's what it is. That there's no one way to get to and stay in recovery. And I argue for it and I advocate for it at any chance I can get, right? To educate people that there's more than one way to get to and stay in recovery. And here's what I say. There are some treatment centers, there are some government agencies, there are some entities that have nice shiny pamphlets and nice websites that say they provide individualized treatment, but they don't. What am I talking about? Well, what is individualized treatment? Let's talk about that. Think about it. Think about the term individualized treatment. That would mean an individual comes in, you take in their information, you give their information. It's a two-way street, and you come up with a plan that is going to work for them. Not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. And we still have a lot of that going on. We do. Right here in the small community I live in, all over the state I live in, and all over the country. There are entities that espouse to having individualized treatment, but really it's cookie cutter. And when people don't fall in line with that cookie cutter treatment, they are penalized. It's said that, well, they must not want it bad enough. Well, I hear this, they must think they're special or they're unique, when it could easily be that they don't buy into the cookie cutter treatment plan, which is what happens a lot. Let's talk about this. So let's say this is what happens. So you go to your doctor for an ailment, right? Let's just say what it is. Who cares? I don't know. Some ailment. And your doctor gives you a treatment for that ailment, right? And you go and you're like, ooh, it's not working. This treatment that you're giving me for this ailment is not working. What are you going to do? You're going to go back to your doctor. You're going to go back to your doctor and you're going to say, hey, doc, treatment that you're giving me isn't working. What's your doctor going to say? Well, your doctor is going to say one of two things. We're either going to up the ante, up the dose, or up the treatment level of the treatment we're giving you, or we're going to try a different treatment method. Right? Beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about treatment for a substance use disorder, this behavioral health condition, treatment for a substance use disorder. When we know, this is just baffling to me, we know there are multiple ways to get to and stay in recovery, okay? You go to treatment, you get the treatment, you leave the treatment, and it doesn't work for you. Your quality of life does not improve. It goes back to the negative level it was before. You return to use, or you return to high levels of use, whatever it is. And so then what do? You go back to the treatment provider and you say, hey, that treatment you gave me, while it was good, is there another method of treatment? And guess what you're going to get told? Nope, this is what we have, and this is what you get. Wait a second, what about individualized care? Or what about offering me truly individualized care? A different method. You know, the 12-step thing, it was great. I gave it my best effort. It just didn't work for me. Can I do something else? Can I get some more counseling? That was great. And I'd like to try a different type of support for myself, whether it be my church or say Smart Recovery or Buddhist recovery, right? There's all different types of supports. A lot of treatment centers, here's what's going to happen. They'll even put this in your file. in different professional words, not amenable to treatment. Well, wait a second. That's not, I want treatment. I want to do what I need to do to improve my life, but I'm asking you to allow me to do different things to support that. They will say that you are in denial, that we gave them treatment and here the person's back and they're saying they want more treatment, but they don't want the treatment we provide. They must not want it bad enough. I just like, stop it. Actually give individualized care. That's what I argue for. Actually give individualized care. So I am 100% a proponent of helping you. If you talk to me, I'm not going to steer you in any one direction. I'm going to say, hey, what do you, have you tried this, or do you want to try this, or what could work for you, right? You hear this in the recovery community. Hey, what works for me works for me. You need to try what's going to work for you. And I want that to actually be the case. But what happens a lot is people really get bought into what's working for them. I see this in the recovery community. And they say, just like kind of like some treatment centers say they're open-minded and they're truly individualized care. And I hear people say, yeah, you do what works for you, but really you can try that, but good luck. And it's like, stop. I want us to be truly open-minded. I want us to truly want for others to find what's going to work for them. And so you might be sitting there thinking, well, what do? You say you have your way of doing things that supports your life and recovery. What is it that you do? I'm going to tell you. So I have a few things that I do in my life on a pretty regular basis that keep me, what I say, on an even keel, like just, a good day. Number one, I stopped seeking happiness. Now, hold on. I love to be happy and I love to laugh, but I have what I kind of consider to be more of a stoic mindset. Life is what it is on a daily basis. There are things I can control. There are certainly actions I can take, but there are some things that I've just got to roll with, right? Like kind of a topic that I talk about, the weather, right? I have no control over the weather. The weather is the weather. Right? My wife and I just went to sunny Arizona for 10 days. And guess what? While we were in sunny Arizona for those 10 days, we enjoyed those 10 days. We're back home. And guess what? I'm enjoying being back home. The weather is the weather. Certainly, I'd like it to be warmer here, but it's not. It is what it is. So I kind of come from a stoic mindset in my life, but I also truly believe in taking action, right? I have a say in my life. I say this when I have the opportunity for people navigating their life to recovery. You are not powerless. I am not powerless. Certainly, when I was in active addiction, when I had no knowledge, no education of another way of living, that was powerless. But here's the thing. Once I gained knowledge that I could live my life a different way, I'm no longer powerless. And in my life in recovery, I have all of the say in my life on a daily basis. And again, yes, there's things I can't control. I have to let go. But there are so many things I have a say in. And so I take action on a daily basis to solve my problems, to walk through my problems, to capitalize on my opportunities, to create opportunities. So that's part of my mindset in my life. I have a daily routine that I do nearly every day. In fact, we just were on vacation for 10 days, and that morning daily routine happened every day, even on vacation. And one of the things I do is I get up and I go to bed at the same time nearly every day. There's maybe a little fluctuation in an hour range on my get up and go to bed time, but nearly the same time on a daily basis. Your body needs rest and it needs a regular cycle of sleep. And I'm going to tell you that one little thing that I've created at a consistent habit in my life has dramatically helped me in my life as a person in recovery and with my mental health. I get up at the same time every day, and one of the first things I do is I open all the blinds and the curtains in our home. And I do that for a pretty specific reason, and it has to do with my mental health. I've struggled with the kind of depression that kept me in bed for days on end. Like literally in recovery, in my previous life in recovery, while I had great improvement, one area was the depression just was like so heavy a lot, right? I would stay in bed, I would miss work, so I decided, you know what, and this was through education and counseling, that I was going to open the blinds and curtains every day because I would keep them closed and I would stay in bed. So I open all the blinds and the curtains every day, even when it's dark in the winter, but because once that sun comes up, it lets that natural light in. And then the next thing that I do is I get some clothes on and I, of course, take a couple drinks of the coffee and I go on a morning walk every day. I go on the morning walk. Daisy, Johnny, they come with me. It's about a mile-ish, half mile some mornings, just depends, but I get outside first thing every morning. And I'm going to tell you again, physical health, it's great to get your feet moving, to get your body moving. But also, I still wake up on some mornings in a negative headspace. But I've created this habit, right? Like I don't need an alarm clock anymore. I just get up. I just wake up and I just get up. It just happens, right? And I can wake up still and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do the day. It's magical. It's not magic, but it feels magical that about halfway through that morning walk, I'll usually shift into at least a neutral headspace. At least I'll say, okay, I'm not going to cancel the day. Yeah, I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to get through the day. But then almost every case, it shifts to, oh yeah, let's do the day. We got this. Let's go. It's a beautiful thing. Then I come home. I make the bed every day. I make my bed every day. I actually bought a book. It's called Make Your Bed Every Day. It's by a retired Rear Admiral. He talks about it. And it's the first task of the day. You make your bed every day. And I do it because I like to keep a neat house. We do, my wife and I. But it's a little bit harder to get back into a made bed. Yep. It's possible, but it's a little bit harder to get back into a made bed. I make the bed every day. And then I do my morning quote. I read some kind of positive quote. I'm looking over here in my office at my daily passage reading for a Stoic mindset. And then I'll look up a quote of the day and I'll post that. I have some friends that I send a daily quote to, and I have a friend that sends one to me. So I get some positive stuff in my mind. And then I get ready for the day. I do that every day. I do that every day. I get into action every day. I'm a responsible, active human in my world. Now, another thing I do to support my life in recovery, I call it my circle of influence. I have 5 people, more, but 5 people that I regularly talk to on a daily or weekly or semi-weekly basis. I can rattle them off. My son, Corey, Andy, Steven, my wife, and I'll even put my grandson in there. He's 14 now. My circle of influence. I want you to think about that for yourself. Your circle of influence. The 4 or 5 people that you communicate with on a regular basis. I want you to think about those 4 people for a second. Who you talk to on a daily regular basis in your life. Now, I want you to wrap your brain around what I'm about to say. You are the sum of those 4 or 5 people. I'm going to say it again. Think about the 4 or 5 people you communicate with on a regular basis in your life. Those people you allow to influence you, because they do. You ask them for information. They give you information. You give them information, right? It's a give and take. They're influencing your decision. You ask them for advice. They give you advice, right? You are the sum of the 4 or 5 people you communicate with on a regular basis. So I say for people in early recovery, think about that. I say it for anyone. If you want to get to some goal in life, if you want to improve your life, if you want to change your relationship with drugs and alcohol, you may need to make some changes in this area. And listen, my wife and I are in sync on this one. Is no drama. We don't want negative Nellies in our world. My son and I were just talking about this today in the car. We went down and my youngest grandson had a basketball, but we were talking about, I don't need negative people in my life. Why? Well, because I just don't need that. Partly because I got enough negativity in my own brain, right? I don't need more. So think about those 4 or 5 people. If you have a goal, if you want to get somewhere, surround yourself with people who are at minimum where you are or out ahead, right? That's really, really important to me. And I've seen that as really helpful for my life as a person in recovery and just life in general. Surround yourself with people who are doing the things that you want to do in your life or you are doing in your life. And then something I do, and anyone who knows me knows this, I move my feet, right? Like I don't go to a gym. I walk as many places as I can. I'm fortunate. I live in a small community. I can walk to work. I can walk downtown. I go on the morning walk every day. I take Johnny out and I run him in the field. That's more walking. Like my wife and I, when we go to Arizona, we hike. I do the morning walk down there. I stay active. It's really, really important. And then another one is paying attention to what you put in your body. I do not believe it's enough to just put down the drugs and alcohol. Maybe at first, it's like, yeah, because hear me out with what I'm about to say. At first, yeah, if that's your goal, put down the drugs and alcohol or reduce your use or put down the heavy drug, whatever it is, take that out. But I think almost immediately you should also pay attention to how much sugar and caffeine, and if nicotine's in your world, how much of those things you're putting in your body. I'm fortunate that I put down nicotine when I put down drugs and alcohol. I pay attention to, and I'm not a health nut. I'm just not. That's not who I am. But I pay attention to the amount of sugar and caffeine that goes in my body on a regular basis. I like my morning coffee, right? And then when I'm done with that morning coffee, I switch to water. And I don't need energy drinks, right? So I don't drink them. Sometimes in the summer, my wife and I will have some here and there, but generally speaking, I don't need them. It was my wife who was kind enough to say, honey, actually, when you drink energy drinks, it actually makes you irritable. Oh, probably true. Pay attention to the amount of sugar and caffeine you put in your body. I say this, anyone in recovery knows this. How do you find a 12-step group meeting in any community? The old school saying was, well, just look for people standing outside a building or a church or in an alley and they're smoking or drinking coffee, right? That's old school. Now what do you look for? The people standing outside a building or a meeting room and they're drinking energy drinks and vaping. So think about this for a second. When you get up in the morning, the only thing you've put in your body before, say, noon is nicotine and caffeine and sugar, do not be surprised that you can't handle the normal stress of a day. It was like, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. So I pay attention to the amount of caffeine and sugar I put in my body. Now, I'm going to start wrapping this up for March. Seek help in the areas you need to seek help in. Right? If you need to see a therapist to address childhood trauma, please do that. If you need to go see someone to help learn how to budget your money, please do that. Go do that. Right? I say when I give a lecture in treatment centers, I don't give you permission to just sit in the rooms of a support group meeting. I give you permission to get busy in all areas of your life. I say to people, get a job, any job, right? I remember my first job in early recovery in the mid-90s was at a Subway in Sumner, Washington. And I had been in the military before, and I had had what I viewed as better jobs before. I don't try to put values on jobs, but I had this job at a Subway. And there was part of me who was like, oh, I can do better than this. And so I set goals to do that. But here's what I did. While I was at that Subway, I was the best sandwich artist in the land. And here's what a job does for us. It gives us somewhere to be. It starts producing an income to start attacking the financial wreckage if you have that. I had a lot, right? So whatever areas of your life you need to improve in, please do that. That's helped me so much in these 18 years of recovery. I've been to counseling. I've learned how to budget my money. I've found a way to enjoy a great career as a college professor. I set that as a goal and I've made it happen. Get busy living your life in recovery. I think I'm going to close it up for this one. And I hope that you've gotten hope, right? Because I've talked about the things that I do on a regular basis that really have helped me dramatically in my life as a person in recovery and in my life as a whole. I hope you have a great day. Love to all.